Opening line. The sky over Kirio's 9 cracked in half, and fire rained down like judgment. They came screaming through the void, armored leviathans, 10 kilometers long, each bristling with plasma lances and entropy cannons. The Sphairon called it the Reckoning. To them, this was a cleansing, a holy war against the impurities of flesh. To the humans on the colony below, it was the end. Captain Reyna Voss dropped hard behind a rusted bulkhead as a railgun round atomized the outpost's southern ridge. Her HUD flickered red then black. Static danced across her visor. The comms were gone again. Casualties? She barked, dragging her second-in-command behind cover. Lieutenant Jean Dama coughed blood into his palm. Too many. Half the evac zones never even got powered. We lost the entire Eastern District. He grimaced. They didn't even scream. Just vanished. Reyna didn't flinch. She couldn't afford to. The Sphairon didn't just kill, they erased. Their weapons disrupted matter on the quantum level. Families, homes, identities, gone. Where's the blackout team? En route. ETA 5 minutes. If they make it through the flak wall. Reyna's jaw clenched. That was a big if. Her fingers trembled as she slid a fresh mag into her pulse rifle. Not from fear, but from restraint. She wanted to scream. Her blood screamed. Every fiber of her humanity screamed. But discipline was louder. A Sphairon drop pod thundered into the plaza, cracking the ferrocrete with impact. The pod opened like a metal flower, and out poured death, 7-foot warriors with bone-white exosuits, blades humming with vibrating energy, moving with terrifying grace. They didn't hesitate. Neither did Reyna. Stand fast! She shouted, rising to her feet with a shot that took the lead invader through the throat. Jean followed, dragging his wounded leg, firing from the hip. A second Sphairon fell, then a third. But there were more. A human child ran from the rubble, screaming, her hand outstretched. Reyna's stomach turned. A Sphairon raised its blade. She fired again. Missed. Then the child vanished, scooped into the arms of a blur. Not a blur. A man. Reyna blinked. The newcomer was unarmored, save for a matte black skin suit. No insignia. No comms tag. Just a single stripe of red paint down his cheek. He moved like a shadow, silent, sure, final. He tore the Sphairon apart with a knife. Not a plasma blade. A steel knife. She didn't believe what she saw until the blood hit the wall. Who the hell? Jean stammered. Blackout, Reyna whispered. They're already here. More figures emerged from smoke, quiet as ghosts. Each one human. No mechs. No drones. Just muscle, instinct, and sharpened metal. They moved in twos, always covering each other, carving through the enemy like wolves among sheep. Sphairon tech jammed electronics. So Blackout learned to live without them. One of the ghosts approached Reyna. A woman. Short. Scarred. Eyes like frozen earth. Captain Voss, she said flatly. You've got 15 minutes. After that, this place gets glassed. By who? She nodded at the sky. Reyna followed her gaze. Up above, peeking through the clouds, the silhouette of the dreadnought Vindicator came into view. Earth's last-generation warship. Human-built. Outgunned. But carrying something new. Project Scorch, the Blackout agent said. It's not a bomb. Reyna exhaled. I've heard rumors. They're true. And the civilians? Anyone not underground dies. Reyna looked around. Burning buildings. Dead friends. A child still crying under debris. She turned back. No. The agent's eyes didn't flicker. Then move fast. 12 minutes later, they were at the core access tunnel. Reyna's squad had found over 60 survivors, civilians, wounded soldiers, even a wounded Sphairon deserter. He looked more human than most of the humans she'd seen today. As they descended, the ground shook. The Sphairon fleet had realized something was wrong. A final message came through, barely pushing through the interference. Reyna! You've got 90 seconds. Extraction window closes. Then Scorch goes live. She looked at the little girl in her arms. At the old engineer who kept refusing help. At Jean, pale and bleeding, still keeping pace. You'll kill them too, she said bitterly into her calm. Only if you fail, came the voice. She ran. The last group crossed into the shielded cavern just as the timer hit 0. From orbit, the Vindicator unleashed Scorch. But it wasn't light. It was sound. A deep, bone-rattling hum that shattered atmospheric harmony. Every Spherian ship paused. Their tech, grown, not built, began to twitch. Their pilots screamed as the resonance wave corrupted their neural lattices. Ships fell from orbit. Warriors bled from eyes and ears, trying to rip off their own armor. It was not a weapon designed to destroy. It was designed to unmake understanding. The Spherian operated on harmony, vibration, frequency. Their civilization was built on resonance and neural song. Humans found the note that broke it. Reyna stood in the dark, holding the girl. Everyone watched the ceiling tremble. Above, hell was falling. Below, they endured. Jean limped to her side. They brought hell, he murmured, smiling through cracked lips. But we brought something worse. Reyna didn't smile. Her eyes were wet not from smoke. From something older. Something deeper. They wanted purity, she said. But they forgot. She looked up. We are chaos. And chaos survives. The Vindicator's orbit stabilized above the scorched remains of Curios 9. Where once stood glass towers and verdant domes, now there was only cratered ash. Smoke spiraled into the stratosphere in long black ribbons, twisting like the ghosts of a dying world. In the silence of the underground refuge, no one cheered. They'd survived, but the cost hadn't been tallied yet. Reyna Voss sat alone at the edge of the shelter, legs dangling over a ledge of cold rock, hands stained with blood that wasn't hers. Behind her, children cried softly, medical units hummed, and refugees whispered about the sound. That terrible, beautiful resonance that shattered the invaders without warning. They didn't know we had that, Jean said, stepping into the dim glow of a cracked lantern. His limp was worse, but he refused a crutch. They thought we wouldn't go that far, Reyna answered without looking at him. They thought wrong. He sat beside her with a grunt. Blackout said something to me before we came down. Said Scorch isn't a weapon in the traditional sense. She turned. What is it then? A psychological betrayal. The frequency doesn't just disrupt, it isolates the Spherian consciousness. Makes them feel alone. Separated from their hive. Reyna's stomach twisted. We didn't kill them. We tore them apart from the inside. He nodded. That's worse. For them. She wanted to feel justified. She didn't. 2 levels above, in the command alcove carved from the bedrock, Blackout operative Silva uploaded surveillance from the field to an encrypted relay. Her fingers moved without thought, her eyes hollow. Report, came a voice behind her. She didn't turn. We confirmed 73 civilian survivors, 8 militia, 2 medics, 1 Spherian defector. Defector? He didn't resist. In fact, she paused. He begged. Begged? For the sound to stop. The figure in the shadows shifted. Agent Cade, the original designer of Scorch. He wore no insignia. His eyes were mismatched, one human, one silver. Do you know why they fear it, Silva? Because it severs them? Cade shook his head. Because for the first time in their history, they heard silence inside themselves. To the Spherian, that's death. Silva swallowed hard. And we used it like a hammer. No. We used it like a mirror. In the infirmary, Reyna watched the Spherian prisoner through a glass partition. He sat upright, spine straight, but his eyes were unfocused. Without his neural link, he was adrift, like a man cut off from gravity. Name? She asked the AI assistant beside her. Designate Correctul, Cast, Seer Adjunct. Reyna walked into the chamber alone. Correctul blinked slowly. You do not resonate. No. I don't, she replied. And now either do you. His gaze sharpened. You murdered my soul. No, she said coldly. You did. When you brought war to civilians. To children. Korektel's exoskin flexed with tension. It was not war. It was purification. Reyna stepped closer. Then what was that sound? He looked down. The sound of our gods leaving us. She didn't reply. The doors sealed behind her as she exited. A day passed in eerie quiet. No further enemy ships arrived. Recon drones detected wreckage scattered across orbit, but no active signals. It felt wrong. The Sverren never just stopped. They either annihilated or consumed. And yet, they'd retreated. Not in fear. In confusion. The galaxy had always seen humanity as aggressive but unremarkable. Too chaotic. Too divided. Too slow to evolve. But no one considered what happened when chaos was directed. That was the purpose of Blackout. That was why Scorch was born. Not to destroy armies, but certainty. At nightfall, Reyna stood atop the crater's rim, helmet off, watching the stars. A soft voice rose behind her. You held the line. She turned. Agent Cade stood in shadow, his voice strangely calm. We lost thousands, she said. But we broke something greater. The myth of Sverren perfection. She faced him fully. You designed that weapon knowing what it would do. Yes. And you didn't stop to think what it would do to us? He tilted his head. You think humans were unscarred by Hiroshima? By Echelon? By Mars Fall? I think we never learned when to stop. He stepped closer. That's the difference. They bring conquest. We bring consequence. Reyna didn't answer. Cade offered her a small tablet. Encrypted. Your next orders. But before you open it, know this, Scorch was only Phase 1. Her fingers tightened around the device. What's Phase 2? He smiled faintly. Something more human. Then he turned and walked into the dark. Later that night, in the command shelter, Jean stood over the map table. He traced the red zones where Sverren fleets once loomed. Now only static signals remained. Reyna entered, tossing the unopened tablet onto the table. What now? He asked. We regroup. We bury our dead. We don't celebrate. He nodded. Then paused. There's chatter. She looked up. From orbit? No. From deep space. Multiple systems. The Sverren are calling it the Shattering. They believe their gods have abandoned them. And us? He looked grim. They're calling us the Hollow Ones. Reyna exhaled slowly. They came to erase our species, she said. Now we've erased their certainty. He looked away. What if they don't retreat next time? Reyna didn't hesitate. Then we show them what real isolation feels like. She turned, stepped out into the cold. The sky was quiet now. But it wouldn't stay that way. Nothing about humanity ever stayed quiet for long. The Vindicator's comms room flickered under emergency lighting. Static throbbed in pulses, like a heartbeat underwater. Reyna stood at the center, shoulders squared, watching the holomap ripple and distort. Is that real? Jean asked behind her, his voice tight. It's a live feed, she said. But that doesn't mean it makes sense. Over a dozen Sverren beacons had flared across deep space, simultaneously. Not signals of war. Signals of mourning. They weren't regrouping. They were wailing. Agent Cade appeared on the upper walkway, descending like a shadow slipping through cracks. They fractured, he said. The hive chorus is gone. No central command. No shared purpose. And you think that makes them weaker? Reyna asked, eyes still locked on the flickering map. It makes them unpredictable, he replied. Which is worse? He handed her a new file. We intercepted a fragmented Sverren transmission. Translated, it says, the Hollow Ones stole our voice. Now we speak in blood? Jean muttered. That sounds like a suicide oath. Reyna's jaw tightened. It's a vow. The next attack didn't come from orbit. It came from below. At 0400 hours, the forward outpost on Curios 9's far crater went silent. When Blackout Recon arrived, they found the station intact. Doors sealed. No blast marks. But the crew, 12 men and women, were gone. Only one message was carved into the wall, etched by hand. You took the song. We take the silence. Silva knelt by it, brushing her fingers along the rough script. They're adapting, she whispered. Back at base, Reyna paced in tight circles. If the Svarin can operate individually now, if they've splintered into cells, they're not an empire anymore, Jean finished. They're zealots. Cade nodded. Exactly. Cells. Each one thinking they carry the true voice. No more hierarchy. No more restraint. He tapped the console. Images filled the screen, rated human outposts across 3 systems. No demands. No patterns. Just brutal, ritualistic annihilation. Reyna whispered. They're becoming human. The council meeting on the Vindicator was brief. Earth Command wanted a decisive strike. Total sterilization of the nearby Svarin fragments. Use Scorch again. Crush what remained. But Reyna hesitated. It won't work twice, she said. We use surprise. We use fear. Now they know what to expect. We'd only be confirming their prophecy. Silva agreed. They're not retreating. They're transforming. Every time we strike, they mutate. So what do we do? The Admiral snapped. Wait for another massacre? Reyna looked around the table. Soldiers. Politicians. Scientists. Then she said something none of them expected. We talk. Laughter burst across the chamber. You want to negotiate with a cult? Someone scoffed. No, she said calmly. I want to understand what they've become. Before they show us what we've become. Cade leaned forward, interested now. You want to walk into the void? Yes, Reyna replied. With eyes open. Reyna descended into the prisoner chamber again. Korektal hadn't moved in hours. But when she stepped inside, his head rose slowly. You've changed, he said. You all have, she answered. He studied her. You fear what you made. I understand it. That's more dangerous. He tilted his head. You wish to see what silence has created? I want to stop more of it. For the first time, Korektal smiled. Not with joy. With recognition. Then I will show you. Reyna left the base with a blackout escort and a lone Svarin guide, Korektal himself, stripped of his armor and singing to himself in fragmented tones. They crossed scorched hills, stepped through cities turned to dust, until they reached a crater far beyond the sensor's range. Within it stood a monolith. Carved by hand. Painted in blood. It pulsed faintly. Svarin? Jean asked over calms. No, Reyna replied. This is human. At the base of the structure lay bodies. Human and Svarin both, arranged in spirals. Eyes open. Smiling. Silva whispered. They're merging. We shattered their order. Now they're building a new one. Not Svarin. Not human. Something in between. Cade's voice crackled in over the relay. Reyna, get out of there. Now. Why? Because we've seen this before. Images flashed across her visor. Other worlds. Other fractures. Other hybrids. Where war shattered identity, new things grew. Things that obeyed neither side. This isn't the enemy anymore, Cade said. It's evolution. But Reyna didn't move. She watched Korektal kneel before the monolith and sing, alone, broken, but still singing. And from beneath the ground, a chorus answered. Not just Svarin. Not just human. A new voice. Reyna turned slowly. This isn't war anymore, she whispered. Silva raised her rifle. Then what the hell is it? Jean said it first. It's Genesis. And behind them, the earth cracked open. The ground didn't tremble, it breathed. As Reyna stared, fissures widened beneath her feet, not from tectonic stress but rhythmic motion. Like lungs, inhaling something old. Something new. The monolith pulsed once, and the strange chorus surged from the crater's depths, raw, layered, and inhumanly perfect. Jean shouted into comms. "We need evac, now!" "No," Reyna said quietly but firmly. She stepped forward, past Silva's outstretched arm, toward Correctol. He was still kneeling, voice rising in harmonics not heard from any Sphairon before. His song twisted, melancholy, guttural, then soft again. It didn't command. It invited. From the crack, a figure rose. Not fully Sphairon. Not human. Its form shimmered bipedal, but fluid in motion, bone and silicone beneath a translucent exoskin. No weapons. No armor. Just presence. Silva raised her weapon. "Target in sight." "Stand down," Reyna snapped. "It's a hybrid," Silva hissed. "A mutation." "It's the consequence," Reyna said. "Of us. Of Scorch. Of everything we thought we could control." The creature stepped closer, head tilting. Its gaze met Reyna's, and she felt it. Not a thought, not a word. A sensation, grief threaded with wonder. Loss wrapped in birth. An emotion beyond vocabulary. And then it spoke. Not in sound. In memory. 1,000 images flooded Reyna's mind, colonies burning, ships breaking atmosphere, children screaming, Sphairon singing in their last moments. But also, new life. Shared meals. Laughter between old enemies. The first time a child held hands with one of them. She staggered back, tears involuntary. Silva's voice cracked. "Reyna, what did it do to you?" "It showed me a future." "Whose?" She turned, her voice hollow. "Neither ours, nor theirs." Above, in low orbit, the Vindicator's command center descended into chaos. "Sir, we've got movement, massive heat signature beneath the surface." "Scorch detonation protocol?" Cade stepped in, calm as ever. "Negative." The Admiral turned. "That was not a request." Cade didn't blink. "And this is not your war anymore." On the surface, dozens of fissures bloomed open like scars healing in reverse. Creatures, hybrids, emerged slowly, not aggressive. Observing. Each one different. Unique. Some more human, some more alien. None full either. Reyna keyed her mic. "Do not engage." "Repeat, do not engage." "This isn't first contact," she added. "It's last contact, with who we were." Jean approached the central hybrid, his voice low. "Why us?" The creature blinked, then simply said, "Because you broke the song. Now you must help us rewrite it." Correctol stood again, his voice no longer trembling. "We were enslaved to harmony. You were enslaved to noise. Now, there is balance." Reyna stepped into the center of the circle. "We didn't come here to become gods," she said. "But you did," the hybrid replied. "Every species that breaks itself must choose what it becomes next." The Vindicator's board voted to deploy Scorch again. Unanimous. Until Cade locked them out. "You were trained to fight war," he said. "Not evolution." Reyna's final message beamed from the surface, voice steady. "There is no enemy here. There's only the future. And you don't get to kill it just because you don't understand it." Then she cut the channel. 1 year later. A new colony stood on Kyrios 9, not military, not political. A sanctuary? No flags flew above it. No borders were drawn. It was built by hands that had once fired rifles, and by claws that had once held plasma blades. Together. Blackout was disbanded. Scorch was buried beneath encrypted firewalls, labeled an artifact of shame. And Reyna Voss? She stood on a balcony carved into the hillside, watching the sky change colors as 2 stars danced in eclipse. At her side, the hybrid, once nameless, now called Sorrow, stood tall, silent. Jean arrived with 2 cups of tea. He handed one to her, nodding at the view. "Peace looks good on you," he said. She smiled faintly. Still doesn't feel real. Sorrow spoke, voice soft. It never does. Until it's gone. Reyna looked at them both, soldier, hybrid, friend. They brought hell, she whispered. Jean nodded. And we brought something worse. She turned to face them, eyes resolute. No, she corrected. We brought something after. The camera would have pulled back here, slowly, wide, showing the rebuilt colony, the mountains beyond, and the stars above. But instead, it lingered on her face. Not hardened. Not broken. Human. And not alone.